So the Cypher system has an advancement structure where characters start at tier 1 and then they advance to tier 6. What does Invisible Sun do for character advancement, and is there a point you reach where your character is done?
That's a good question. So I guess the answer to the latter part is no, not really. But I'll expound upon that in a minute. So characters, we don't have levels, we don't have tiers like in the Cypher system. Instead, everything is based on what are called story arcs. And so you start off with at least one story arc as, as part of your character, and there are points in this arc that you reach, and when you reach a point in your arc, right, as a part of that story of that arc, then you get points which are called acumen. They're easily thought of as experience points, and you use acumen to spend to perhaps advance in your order, perhaps learn a new spell or a new secret or any other kind of ability. There's lots of ways to advance in this game. We've talked in the Kickstarter updates a little bit about Vizsla houses, for example, right? Well, in the same way that you can advance your character, you can also advance your house, and you can get new sort of magical abilities and capabilities and things that you can integrate into your own home. That it's not wrong to think of the Vizsla house as an extension of the Vizsla in that way. And so maybe you want to create a room where it's impossible to tell lies. You can make a room like that in your house, and so you're upgrading your house, you're advancing your house in that way. So like I said, you've got these story arcs, and so let's take an example, right? Maybe there is a story arc that is you want to, let's just take a really obvious one, right? You want to discover who your parents were, right? That's sort of a thing that you see a lot in stories and RPGs. I have a mysterious background. I don't know who my parents were, right? So there are various story points, like I said, along that arc, where you might discover a clue, you might discover, someone who knew your parents, you might discover someone who knew you as a young child. Each one of these is a story point, and when you've reached those points, working that out with the GM, you get those acumen, and then then there is obviously a climax to the story where everything comes to a head, right? You discover the thing you're trying to discover, and that is a story point. That's like the big story point. And then there's a resolution after that. But that isn't the whole arc of your character. You're not done, right? Because at any given point, any character might have multiple story arcs going on, not all of them necessarily starting at the same time, in the same place, right? You might have some big arc that, goes throughout the career of your character, and smaller arcs sort of in between that. If you think of, any sort of episodic television show or book series or something like that where characters work this way, that's what this is going after. And you might even have, in fact, it's very likely that you'll have story arcs that involve your entire group, right? So, your entire group will undertake, maybe a story arc that they would undertake is we are going to, find the secret to getting into the library of Roll the Left-Handed God, right? We saw that in the Kickstarter gameplay video, and that might be the whole group's story arc, and there's a number of positions on that. And so that's how characters advance. But there is one other aspect to it that I wanted to mention, and that is there are there's sort of two different kinds of currency when it comes to advancing your character. There's acumen, where you're spending a couple of points and you get a new second level spell. Later you get 3 more points and you spend 2 of those on another second level spell, and you spend another one on a secret that sort of advances your character. But there's also something called Crux. Crux is divided into joy and despair. And these are like the big, meaty sorts of experience points. You need joy and despair to unlock the bigger things that that are important to your character's advancement, like maybe certain types of abilities that you get through your forte are only unlocked once you spend a point of joy, or another one might be based on spending a point of despair. And joy and despair is sort of just like what it sounds like, right? When really good things happen to you, you get joy, and when terrible things happen to you, you get despair. And the things that key off of those for your specific character are things that you set up at the beginning, but will change over time. The things that earn you joy for your character might not give somebody else joy. I mean, some things will give everybody joy, but some things are important specifically to you, and so that's what gives you joy, or that's what gives you despair. And so that's how advancement works. There's two different levels of things going on, but there isn't anything like tiers in the Cypher system or anything. There isn't any sort of step-by-step kind of thing. It's much more fluid than that.